A stranger noticed a little girl playing by herself in the park and considered her vulnerable. He attempted to lure her with ice cream and nearly succeeded, but he made a critical error. He failed to recognize the dog next to her was a retired police canine. The ensuing events stunned everyone at the playground. Before we share today's story, please leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, please subscribe to stay updated. Exciting content is coming soon. The sound of children's laughter drifted across Oak Ridge Community Park on a spring breeze, as families gathered for the first genuinely warm Saturday of the season. 7-year-old Lily Chan ran across the playground, her dark pigtails bouncing with each step, a German shepherd trotting faithfully at her side. "Ranger, catch!" Lily called out, throwing a well-worn tennis ball in the direction of the oak trees that gave the park its name. The dog's powerful muscles coiled and released as he bounded after it, his movements fluid and precise. Unlike the other pets that occasionally visited the park, Ranger didn't just run. He moved with purpose, each stride calculated and efficient. Lily's mother, Rebecca, smiled from her bench, briefly looking up from her book to watch her daughter and dog play their endless game of fetch. What started as a temporary fostering arrangement 18 months ago had swiftly become permanent. Ranger had evolved from a recovering police canine to an integral part of their family. "Mom, did you see how high he jumped?" Lily exclaimed, her face radiant with pride as Ranger returned. The tennis ball was firmly in his mouth, his head held high as if he were displaying a trophy. "I saw, sweetie," Rebecca responded, shielding her eyes from the sun. "He's showing off for you today." Rebecca omitted the fact that she'd observed a change in Ranger's behavior over the last few minutes. His ears had risen, and his posture had subtly transitioned from relaxed to alert. He had twice halted their game to survey the edges of the playground, his dark eyes concentrating especially on the group of trees close to the park entrance. Ranger released the ball near Lily's feet, but didn't retreat to resume their game. Rather than moving, he stayed standing, his focus directed towards something or someone past the playground. A man had been observing from the shadow of a large oak for almost 15 minutes, sometimes looking at his phone but consistently returning his look to the children. When Lily reached down to get the ball, Ranger shifted, placing himself between her and the figure in the distance. The slight change escaped the notice of both mother and daughter, but it was intentional, a defensive posture developed from years of training and intuition. Ranger's ears moved forward, registering sounds imperceptible to human hearing, his nose analyzing the air with shallow, measured inhalations. The stranger shifted his baseball cap and advanced a step. Ranger's muscles tightened under his heavy coat, a soft growl building in his chest that Lily couldn't detect. The day began like any other spring Saturday, but a shift was noticeable in the air. Ranger felt it, and he was determined to protect Lily. Before we proceed, please share in the comments where you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel because tomorrow at the same time, we will present another unforgettable story of heroism and sacrifice from the world's most extraordinary canines. 19 months prior, Officer Jason Rivera had been seated beside a hospital bed at Metro Veterinary Emergency Center, his calloused hand resting softly on his partner's sedated body. The German Shepherd's powerful build appeared somewhat diminished under the medical coverings, and foreline extending into his front leg, new stitches indicating where surgeons had dedicated hours mending injuries from 2 bullets. "He protected everyone in that room," Rivera told the veterinarian, his voice strained with feeling. The suspect was apprehended despite officers being struck twice. The drug bust rapidly devolved within seconds. What should have been a standard warrant execution became a firefight when the suspects detected they were trapped. Rivera's team was initially held down until Ranger, disregarding his own injuries, moved towards the primary shooter, creating an opportunity for the officers. Ranger would recover, according to the doctor's assessment, but his career as an active police canine had concluded. The injury to his left hip would result in a slight limp, barely noticeable to those who didn't know him well, but sufficient to conclude a notable 5-year career. Upon learning of Ranger's circumstances, Rebecca Chen, a social worker who sometimes worked with the police department, volunteered to provide him with temporary foster care. They cautioned her that the German Shepherd was intense, displaying a high drive and not typically suited as a family pet. However, Rebecca, a single mother raising a daughter in a neighborhood experiencing rising property crime, believed a retired police dog could be a beneficial addition. The initial weeks proved difficult. Ranger patrolled the house like a guard, scrutinizing windows and doors, and struggled to adapt to a life outside of police work. He slept minimally, remaining constantly vigilant, as if anticipating his next task. A thunderstorm arrived, marking a significant moment. 6-year-old Lily, who was afraid of storms, had retreated to her closet, crying as thunder rattled their small house. Rebecca discovered Ranger already present, curled around her daughter, his body shielding Lily from the door, his eyes watching over her with a calm and reassuring gaze. An enduring connection was forged that night. Having been trained to protect the public, Ranger discovered a new purpose with a small girl who called him her furry guardian. Though retired, Ranger never completely ceased being a police dog. He continued to perform perimeter checks of their home nightly, still responded to the subtle commands Rivera had taught him, still watched for threats that others might miss. Back at the playground, Rebecca's phone buzzed with an urgent call from work. She responded, her gaze shifting to watch Lily and Ranger play near the slide. "I know it's Saturday," she said, lowering her voice and stepping a few feet away, ensuring Lily remained visible. A man had approached, settling onto a bench with a direct line of sight to the playground. He appeared to be in his mid-30s with a nondescript look, wearing jeans, a light jacket despite the warmth, and a blue baseball cap pulled low. There was nothing overtly suspicious about him, aside from the fact that he carried no toys or baby equipment, was not with a child, and yet had spent almost 30 minutes observing the playground with deliberate attention. Ranger observed him. Each time Lily ran to the slide, the man's head would turn to follow her, noting his location. When she moved toward the swings, getting nearer to where the stranger was sitting, Ranger dropped the tennis ball completely and remained within 2 feet of her, his actions relaxed but intentional. "Look, Ranger. See how high I can go." Lily pumped her legs on the swing, reaching for the sky. 3 benches away, the man stood, stretching casually before making his way toward the ice cream cart that had just arrived at the park entrance. 15 minutes later, he returned, now carrying 2 ice cream cones. He surveyed the playground before taking a new position, this one even closer to the swings. "Excuse me," he called to Lily as she dragged her feet in the wood chips to slow her swing. "I mistakenly received an extra strawberry cone. My nephew decided he no longer wanted it. Would you like it? It would be unfortunate to discard such good ice cream." Ranger's ears flattened instantly, his tail changing from a relaxed wag to a stiff posture. He moved directly in front of Lily as she hopped off the swing. "My mom says I'm not supposed to accept things from strangers," Lily replied, looking at the melting cone with evident desire. The man smiled, but the expression didn't fully reach his eyes. "Kind woman. But I'm not really unfamiliar now that we're speaking. Correct? I'm Mike. What's your name?" Ranger shifted slightly. To someone inexperienced, he might have seemed merely focused, but the stiffness in his hindquarters and the minor forward distribution of his weight conveyed a different narrative. He was bracing. "I'm Lily. That's my dog, Ranger," she indicated proudly. "A pleasant dog," the man, Mike, remarked, although his voice implied otherwise. "Why don't you come over here for the ice cream? You are welcome to bring your dog." Rebecca, still engaged in a phone call, proceeded towards a crying toddler who had tripped close by. She briefly turned away as she assisted the child in locating his mother while simultaneously managing her phone conversation. "Ranger goes with me wherever I go," Lily stated, taking a step back. The dog, now seemingly hesitant, mirrored her movement precisely, staying positioned between her and the unfamiliar person. Mike's face showed a slight, almost unnoticed change. "Because I'm allergic to dogs. Could you please just come over quickly? It won't take long." Ranger then made a sound, not a growl, but a low rumble of warning that Lily had never heard before. She took another step back, her hand instinctively finding the dog's fur. "I think my mom is calling me," she said, though Rebecca was still occupied with her phone call. A commotion erupted near the playground entrance as a mother frantically called for help. Her son had seemingly climbed too high on the jungle gym and was now frozen in fear, unable to move. Rebecca, still on her important call, but always the social worker, hurried over to help, casting a quick glance toward Lily. "Stay right by the swings, sweetie. I'll be right back," she called. The stranger's posture changed instantly. His shoulders straightened, his gaze sharpened, and he moved with new purpose, discarding one ice cream cone in a nearby trash can while maintaining his grip on the other. "Your mom's going to be busy for a while?" he observed, his voice taking on a confidential tone as he approached Lily directly. "I have more than ice cream in my car. I got a new puppy too. Much cuter than this old dog. Do you want to see him?" Ranger's hackles rose visibly now, the fur along his spine standing on end. His mouth remained composed, his discipline preventing such a blatant reaction. Yet his gaze remained fixed on the man's hands, noting each minor shift. "Mom says I have to stay here," Lily responded, now feeling uneasy, her first pleasantness giving way to the wariness her mother had taught her regarding unfamiliar people. "It'll just take a minute," the man asserted, his smile unwavering but his tone becoming stricter. "The puppy might run away if we don't hurry." He advanced another step, and Ranger emitted a clear, commanding bark that caught the notice of several parents in the vicinity. The man paused, looking around to assess if the bark had drawn undue attention. "Your dog appears aggressive," he stated, projecting his voice for anyone who might be observing. "You really ought to keep him leashed." A woman maneuvering a stroller nearby stopped, her gaze shifting between Lily, Ranger, and the stranger with a worried expression. "Are you all right?" Turning to Lily, she spoke instead of the man. "I'm fine," Lily replied, her voice hesitant. This man was talking about his puppy, but Ranger doesn't seem to like him. The stranger immediately adopted a polished, charming tone. "Just making conversation while enjoying the park," he said to the woman. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" The woman paused, seemingly unconvinced, but after a brief moment, she resumed pushing her stroller, albeit at a reduced speed, and occasionally looked back. Once she had created a noticeable space, the man's focus returned to Lily, his voice lowered to an urgent whisper. "Listen, kid, the puppy is truly special. He performs tricks, significantly better tricks than your dog, but he's timid, so we need to leave right now while your mom is occupied." Lily took another step back, bumping into the swing set. "I don't want to see your puppy. I want my mom." The stranger's face hardened, the appearance of friendliness disappearing. "Look, we can do this the easy way." Ranger shifted, a seamless movement that positioned him directly before Lily, his stance broadening into the recognizable posture of a trained police K-9 readying to address a potential danger. The change was striking. The family pet had vanished, superseded by the law enforcement officer he was trained to be. Across the playground, Rebecca was assisting the frightened boy as he descended from the jungle gym. Her back remained turned to what was happening near the swings. Rebecca concluded assisting the distressed boy and quickly returned to Lily, concluding her work call. "Sorry about that, sweetie," she said. "An emergency at work and then that poor little boy." She paused, observing Lily's apprehensive look and Ranger's watchful stance. "Is everything all right?" Before Lily could respond, the stranger reappeared, advancing from a different direction with increased confidence. A dog treat was clearly visible in his hand. "Hey there, Lily," he called, as if they knew each other well. "I discovered something your dog might enjoy." A gesture of goodwill. Rebecca visibly tensed. "Pardon me, are you known to us?" The man offered a friendly smile. "Mike, I was just speaking with your daughter while you were assisting with that matter nearby. She mentioned your dog's name is Ranger, a magnificent animal." Ranger remained alert, not relaxing his watchful stance, even with the treat presented. His training included precautions against contaminated food. He would never accept treats from anyone except his designated handlers. "I don't recall giving you permission to speak with my daughter," Rebecca stated calmly, positioning a protective arm around Lily's shoulders. The man's smile remained unchanged. "Just being friendly, kids enjoy talking about their pets." He took a casual step closer, extending the treat toward Ranger. "Here, boy. No hard feelings, right?" Ranger didn't move, didn't even glance at the offered food. His gaze remained fixed on the man's face with unnerving intensity. He doesn't take food from strangers, Lily explained, pride mixing with relief in her voice. As Rebecca reached into her pocket for the leash, the stranger made his move. With shocking speed, he lunged forward, shoving Rebecca aside while simultaneously grabbing for Lily's arm. "Come on, kid." What happened next unfolded in mere seconds. Ranger exploded into action, a blur of precision and controlled power. He did not attack, at least not yet, but instead employed his body as a battering ram, impacting the man's midsection with sufficient force to loosen his hold on Lily without causing him to fall. The stranger recoiled, his eyes widening in surprise at the strategic response. This was not the behavior of an animal protecting its person. This was a deliberate action. He expressed astonishment, reaching into his jacket pocket. Ranger swiftly shifted to a defensive stance, adopting a posture easily identifiable to law enforcement, an angled approach with his head lowered, readying for a potential confrontation. As the man produced a small canister from his pocket, seemingly pepper spray, Ranger's training took over completely. The German Shepherd advanced with accuracy, securing his jaws around the man's wrist with precise force, sufficient to dislodge the canister without causing injury. The police canine delivered a controlled bite, intended to restrain rather than injure. The individual cried out in pain and shock, attempting to dislodge the dog. "Get him off me! This dog is attacking me!" The disturbance had quickly attracted the attention of those present. Multiple parents retrieved phones, some contacting 911, while others documented the developing situation. A park security guard arrived, radio in hand. "What's going on here?" he asked. "This man tried to grab my daughter," Rebecca called out, drawing Lily to safety behind her. "The dog's crazy," the stranger insisted, still struggling against Ranger's hold. "I was just being friendly." Ranger held firm, seemingly unimpressed by the man's attempts to escape. His training was clear in his stance. He wasn't reacting with uncontrolled aggression, but adhering to procedures learned through thousands of hours of police work. The security guard paused, uncertain about how to manage the situation involving the dog. "Madam, could you please call off your dog?" Rebecca found she didn't know the correct command. Lily, however, recalled something Officer Rivera had taught her. "Ranger, hold," she stated firmly. To everyone's surprise, Ranger immediately shifted from an active bite to maintaining a grip, becoming almost motionless while still effectively restraining the man without causing further injury. The security guard called for police assistance via radio, carefully maintaining space from Ranger, who continued to restrain the struggling stranger. Spectators quickly moved their children, creating a clear area around the unfolding situation. "Police are responding," the guard announced. "Everyone stay still." The stranger, however, had a different course of action. With a swift and urgent maneuver, he sharply hit Ranger across the muzzle with his available hand. The impact loosened the dog's grip for a brief instant, providing the man the opportunity he required. He quickly rose and ran towards the parking lot, abandoning a dropped wallet and keys in his haste. Rebecca held Lily near, uncertain if she should feel relieved or worried that the danger was retreating. Her question was answered instantly by Ranger, who disengaged from the impact and focused his attention on the fleeing suspect. "Should I instruct him to pursue?" Lily observed, noticing her dog's muscles tighten in anticipation. Before Rebecca could respond, Ranger acted decisively. The German Shepherd surged forward, rapidly covering the distance. This was unlike the playful running he exhibited during their games of fetch. It mirrored the intense pursuit of a police K-9 tracking a fleeing suspect. The stranger looked over his shoulder, fear evident on his face as he realized the dog was quickly closing in. He maneuvered between parked cars, attempting to create barriers, but Ranger expertly navigated the parking lot, utilizing precise angles to reduce the gap. A blue sedan's door was suddenly opened as the man reached what appeared to be his vehicle. He made a dash for the driver's seat, but Ranger was quicker. The German Shepherd executed a controlled takedown, knocking the man to the asphalt before he could enter the car. This time, Ranger did not bite. He circled the fallen suspect, emitting vocalizations with the precise rhythm instructed for police K-9s upon successfully cornering a subject. a sound intended to intimidate while officers approached. Rebecca pursued them, pulling Lily along and urgently searching for security or police. Several bystanders followed at a distance, using smartphones to record the intense pursuit. "That dog moved like it was trained for this," one man remarked in amazement. The man attempted to get up, but Ranger's imposing stance held him down. The dog moved in a continuous pattern, denying any opportunity, employing strategies that blocked escape without needing to touch him. Two park security personnel arrived, shortly after the sound of police sirens could be heard. Rebecca felt drained with relief as patrol cars entered the parking lot. As officers neared, Ranger's behavior changed slightly. The dog's barking pattern shifted, appearing as if he recognized the uniforms and was now communicating with them, instead of merely containing the suspect. "Is that a police K-9? One officer began, observing Ranger's tactical movements with clear understanding. "He used to be," Rebecca explained breathlessly. "He's retired." Meanwhile, the officer secured the suspect, who continued to protest his innocence even as they discovered a roll of duct tape, zip ties, and a hunting knife in his jacket pockets. "I'm telling you, I didn't do anything wrong," the man protested as handcuffs snapped shut. "I was just being friendly with the kid. The dog attacked me without provocation." One officer, while checking the man's pockets, exchanged a significant glance with his colleague. "Sure, friendly guys carry restraints and hunting knives to the playground." As they escorted him towards the patrol car, one officer halted, observing Ranger with a closer look. "Hold on. Is that Ranger, Rivera's old partner?" Rebecca responded, visibly surprised. "Yes, we adopted him after his retirement." "Are you familiar with him?" The officer shook his head in amazement. "Familiar with him? This dog is a legend within the department. I was still in the academy when he dismantled the Wilson drug ring, sustained 2 bullets, and still apprehended the suspect." Ranger had returned to Lily's side, his mission complete, transitioning seamlessly back to being a protective family pet. The transformation was remarkable. The intensity that had characterized his work was now replaced by gentle attentiveness. "I should call Rivera," the officer stated, reaching for his radio. "He's going to want to hear about this." 3 police cruisers formed a perimeter around the section of the parking lot where the attempted abduction suspect was seated, handcuffed in the back of a patrol car. Officers questioned witnesses as crime scene technicians documented evidence from the man's vehicle, which they accessed after securing a warrant. Rebecca was seated on a bench close to the playground, an emergency blanket covering her shoulders. Although the weather was temperate, she was in shock as the full meaning of what could have occurred registered with her. Lily sat next to her, one arm around her mother and the other hand nestled in Ranger's fur. The German Shepherd had remained by her side since the officers had processed him as a witness, an uncommon but fitting action given his involvement in the event. A police SUV arrived, and a man dressed casually but displaying a clear presence of law enforcement emerged. He quickly surveyed the area before his gaze settled on Ranger. A broad smile spread across his face. "Rivera's here," one of the uniformed officers stated. Officer Jason Rivera swiftly crossed the parking lot, his attention focused solely on the German Shepherd sitting protectively beside Lily. Upon seeing his former handler, Ranger's ears rose, and his posture adjusted slightly. "There's my partner," Rivera said, his voice filled with emotion as he moved closer. He paused at a polite distance, seeking permission from Rebecca. She nodded, and Rivera knelt, offering his hand, palm up, in a particular gesture. Ranger instantly recognized the signal, pressing his nose to Rivera's palm before allowing the officer to ruffle the fur around his neck in a practiced motion. "Still got it, don't you, boy?" Rivera murmured, examining the dog carefully for any injuries from the confrontation. Finding none, he turned to Lily. "Has he been taking good care of you?" Lily nodded, her eyes wide. "He saved me from the bad man." Rivera's expression grew serious. "That's what he was trained to do. Best partner I ever had." Detective Morales presented an evidence bag. Addressing Officer Rivera, Morales stated, "Since you're familiar with Ranger's training, we'd like your professional assessment." The suspect insists he was simply being friendly, and the dog attacked without provocation. Rivera rose, carefully inspecting the evidence bag's contents. Duct tape, zip ties, and a hunting knife, his expression hardening. Ranger is trained to identify threatening behavior patterns. He does not react to friendly civilians. If he engaged, a threat was present. The detective affirmed. That was my understanding. We checked the suspect's license plate. Thomas Mercer was wanted in 2 states for attempted child abductions. The methods were strikingly similar, approaching children in parks, then offering ice cream or telling stories about puppies. Rebecca held Lily near, feeling a chill as she realized how narrowly they had avoided becoming another statistic. As night fell, the police completed processing the scene. Thomas Mercer was taken to the county lockup, and detectives were already linking him to 3 other attempted abductions across state lines. A search of his vehicle uncovered compelling evidence, including restraints, a weapon, and a small collection of children's items, likely trophies from past victims or potential bait for future ones. Local news crews arrived, prompted by social media videos depicting a hero dog that had prevented a kidnapping. Rebecca had refused interview requests, worried about increasing Lily's stress, but was unable to stop the video from circulating online. Clips of Ranger's professional takedown and the suspect's containment had already become widely shared. Officer Rivera was seated with the Chun family on a bench away from the press, Ranger resting at their feet, seemingly oblivious to his sudden fame. I never realized, Rebecca said softly, observing her daughter tenderly petting the dog's ears. I was aware he received training, but I didn't fully grasp the extent of his capabilities. Rivera nodded in agreement. Many assume police dogs are simply trained to bite when instructed. However, it's considerably more complex, particularly with dogs such as Ranger. What distinguishes him? Lily inquired, looking up with curiosity.
Rivera smiled.
Ranger participated in a specialized program designed to teach canines to identify particular behavioral patterns. He doesn't solely react to commands. He is capable of recognizing potential dangers through observation of body language, tone of voice, and movement patterns. Rebecca remembered how Ranger had placed himself between Lily and the stranger even before any clear threat became apparent. He perceived a problem before the rest of us did. Rivera agreed, stating that during his service, Ranger was able to differentiate between someone feeling anxious due to police visibility and someone posing a real danger. His training likely saved Lily's life today. Detective Morales came forward, holding a tablet. Mrs. Chun, we've obtained Mercer's background information. I felt you should be aware of what Ranger helped avert. The detective displayed a file outlining Mercer's history, revealing a disturbing pattern of approaching children in public areas, sometimes resulting in successful abductions with devastating consequences. The most recent incident occurred just 2 weeks prior in a neighboring county. Morales explained grimly that he has been operating throughout the region for nearly 3 years, skillfully evading tracking by frequently changing jurisdictions. Detective Morales added that the department would like to formally acknowledge Ranger's actions. We typically reserve commendations for active-duty canines, he stated, but this is a special circumstance. Would you be willing to bring him to a small ceremony next week? Rebecca observed Ranger, an animal who had evolved into so much more than a pet, a protector, a guardian, a silent sentinel, who had detected danger when others had not. Naturally, she concurred he warrants recognition. As they commenced preparations to depart the park, Rivera crouched beside Ranger one last time, delicately scratching behind his ears in a manner that induced the dog's eyes to partially close with satisfaction. You never ceased being a police officer, did you, boy? He said. Ranger received a new patrol area. He looked from Rivera to Lily, his posture communicating what words couldn't express, that he had discovered his new purpose, his new person to safeguard. The retired canine officer now had a smaller jurisdiction, but he patrolled it with the same dedication he'd always demonstrated on the streets. Have you ever noticed your dog sensing something long before you did? Animals possess instincts that humans have largely lost through generations of civilization. The capacity to perceive danger, to understand intentions, to interpret the faint cues that predators and threats release before an attack. Ranger's narrative isn't solely about a former police dog recalling his training during a crucial situation. It's about the extraordinary connection between people and dogs, a partnership that extends back millennia to when our ancestors first recognized that wolves could evolve into guardians, friends, and expansions of our own restricted senses. Consider this. Have you ever noticed your pet reacting to something beyond your perception? How often have you disregarded an animal's alert because it contradicted what your human senses indicated? Maybe there's value in trusting these creatures who experience the world differently. We'd be interested in reading your stories in the comments below. Has your dog ever shielded you from danger? Have you ever observed an animal detecting something humans overlooked? Please let us know where you are watching from and tell us about your experience. We review all comments. If Ranger's story resonated with you, please subscribe and enable notifications to ensure you don't miss future stories of canine heroism. Our channel focuses on sharing these amazing stories of the partnership between people and their canine companions. Give this video a thumbs up if you feel dogs like Ranger should be acknowledged for their service, both during and outside of duty. Pass this along to friends and family who could benefit from a reminder that protection often arrives in unexpected ways. Watch our previous videos, now appearing on your screen. These stories feature military canines who saved their platoons, search and rescue dogs who found survivors despite seemingly insurmountable challenges, and therapy dogs who helped heal profound emotional wounds. Keep in mind, behind every exceptional dog is a human who understood their potential. Years of training, trust, and the strong connection between handler and canine are essential for every heroic act. Occasionally, within a typical family pet resides an exceptional heart, ready to demonstrate its courage. Please stay safe, pet your dogs, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time with another brand new video. A police dog focused on the teacher's bag, barking repeatedly. She initially dismissed it. However, the principal's examination of the bag revealed a startling discovery that shocked everyone. Here's the account of what occurred. Before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories such as this one, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss future content. The autumn morning air felt crisp and clean. Officer Rebecca Martinez, known as Becca by her friends and colleagues, drove her patrol car into the visitor parking lot of Lincoln Elementary School. The large brick building, featuring colorful playground equipment and hand-painted murals, appeared welcoming in the early October sunlight. Beside her, Riker, her 3-year-old German Shepherd partner, remained watchful in his specially designed compartment, his dark, intelligent eyes following the children as they entered the school. "Ready for another school demonstration?" Becca asked, reaching back to scratch behind his ears. Riker's tail thumped against the seat, his posture remaining professional despite his obvious excitement. These community outreach events were his favorite assignments. He enjoyed the attention and the occasional treat sneaked to him by an admiring child. As Becca adjusted her crisp Oakland Police Department uniform in the rearview mirror, she felt a surge of pride in their 2 years together. She and Riker had established themselves as one of the department's most respected canine teams. His detection skills were exceptional, his obedience flawless, and the bond between them unwavering. These school demonstrations served a purpose beyond community relations. They offered an opportunity to inspire the next generation. Principal Harrison greeted them at the front entrance, offering a warm and welcoming handshake. Mr. Martinez arrived, stating perfect timing. The assembly is all set up in the gymnasium. The children had been discussing it constantly all week. Becca trailed after him through hallways displaying student artwork and educational posters. Riker kept his heels perfectly aligned beside her. The gymnasium was filled with the eager conversation of elementary students seated cross-legged on the floor, their teachers positioned carefully around the edges. "Good morning, Lincoln Elementary," Principal Harrison's voice announced over the microphone. "Today we have some very special guests. Please join us in welcoming Officer Rebecca Martinez and her partner, Riker." The demonstration commenced without issue. Rebecca detailed Riker's training as he executed fundamental obedience commands, drawing expressions of admiration as he accurately retrieved objects and successfully completed a miniature obstacle course. The children watched attentively while Rebecca described how police dogs assist in locating missing individuals and identifying hazardous materials. Could any teachers volunteer for our scent detection demonstration? Becca inquired, presenting a training aid, a small canister containing a trace scent intended for demonstrations. Ms. Eleanor Winters, a petite woman with a neat brown bob and wire-rimmed glasses, volunteered among several others. As the respected fourth-grade teacher approached, something shifted in Riker's demeanor. His ears perked up, and his body grew stiff next to Becca. Riker abruptly turned away from the training aid. His focus shifted to Ms. Winters' tote bag, located near the gymnasium wall. A low growl emanated from his throat, a sound Becca had never encountered during a school visit. Riker, heel, Becca instructed softly. However, her partner remained focused, his growl evolving into persistent, urgent barking that reverberated through the suddenly silent gymnasium. The sudden change from a happy demonstration to Riker's forceful barking immediately created a noticeable tension throughout the gymnasium. Children who had been smiling just a few moments prior now appeared concerned, with some even moving backward on the gleaming floor. Ms. Winters paused in her step, her face losing color as Riker continued barking at her canvas tote bag. "Riker, stop," Becca stated more sternly, placing a hand on his tactical harness. The shepherd paused briefly but stayed watchful, his gaze fixed on the bag. 15 years in law enforcement, and 8 as a K-9 handler, had shown Becca how to understand her partners with remarkable precision. This wasn't enthusiasm or bewilderment, it was a practiced alert. Principal Harrison approached, his formal smile tight as he spoke to the students, who were beginning to whisper, "Perhaps we should take a brief 5-minute break? Teachers, please direct your classes back to your rooms briefly." The organized movement of 200 elementary students returning with their teachers allowed Becca a moment to consider the situation. Ms. Winters remained still, her fingers fidgeting with the silver pendant around her neck. "I am so sorry about this," the principal stated once the gym was clear, his voice quiet. "Ms. Winters is among our most valued educators, Teacher of the Year on 2 occasions. There must be some error." Becca nodded, keeping a professional demeanor as her thoughts quickly considered various explanations. Incorrect alerts sometimes occurred with all K-9 units, but Riker's performance history was almost flawless. Furthermore, she understood his alerts. This wasn't hesitation, this was certainty. "Eleanor, do you have any idea what might be causing this reaction?" Principal Harrison asked softly. Ms. Winters replied that she did not, but Becca observed her hand move as if to shield a bag. "Maybe some food would be nice? I brought banana bread for the teacher's lounge." "Food wouldn't trigger this kind of alert," Becca explained carefully. "Riker is trained for narcotics, certain medications, and explosives." The word explosives made Principal Harrison's eyes widen slightly. Ms. Winters let out a small, shaky laugh. "This is absurd. I've been teaching here for 12 years. Becca observed the subtle details most would miss. The slight tremor in Ms. Winters' right hand. She noticed the way her eyes avoided direct contact. Beads of perspiration appeared at her hairline, even though the gymnasium was cool. "Ms. Winters, with your permission, I'd like to check your bag," Becca said, keeping her voice calm and friendly. "It would resolve this quickly, and we can return to the demonstration." "I don't think that's necessary," Ms. Winters responded, taking a slight step backward. "This is embarrassing enough as it is." Principal Harrison appeared conflicted, his eyes moving between the esteemed teacher and the vigilant police dog. "Eleanor, perhaps it would be best to simply—" "Tom, this is absurd," Ms. Winters interjected, addressing the principal by his first name. "You know me." But Riker had started barking again, more urgently now, pulling a little against his harness. Something was clearly amiss, and Becca needed to discover the cause. Anxiety filled the vacant gymnasium as Becca recalled her initial day at the Oakland Police Department's K-9 Training Center. The memory remained clear. A brisk morning similar to today, with the sound of dogs barking throughout the training area, and her own apprehensive excitement as Sergeant Wilson guided her towards the kennels. Martinez was introduced to Riker, as he stopped before a kennel containing a young German shepherd with intelligent eyes and ears that appeared too large for his head. He had failed his first training program. The trainer said he was too independent, but she felt she saw potential in him. The question was, did she? She recalled kneeling before the kennel, meeting Riker's gaze as he studied her with an intensity that seemed almost human. Unlike other dogs who barked or jumped excitedly, Riker had simply watched, assessing. After she had finished speaking, "Hey there, partner," he moved toward the gate, his posture alert but calm. "Well, I'll be damned," Sergeant Wilson had muttered. First handler he hasn't growled at. Their training had been grueling. Riker's independence made him resistant to standard techniques, and Becca had endured several suggestions to request a different dog, but she'd perceived something in his stubbornness, a determination that mirrored her own. They had encouraged each other, tested each other, and ultimately established a pattern that evolved them from separate individuals into an outstanding team. Their significant moment occurred 6 months into training during a complicated search exercise. While other teams adhered to the standard procedure, Riker had abruptly changed direction, guiding Becca to a concealed training tool that had been inadvertently dropped during setup. The instructors had been astonished. The assistance wasn't included in the operation, yet Riker had identified its faint signal amidst numerous interferences. Subsequently, they had compiled a record that demonstrated their effectiveness. This included 17 successful drug seizures, 3 missing children located, and a reputation for precision that had established them as the department's preferred team for challenging investigations. Only recently, in the past month, they had exposed a complex smuggling ring at the port that had bypassed standard searches. However, there had also been resistance. Just last week, Lieutenant Garcia had questioned Becca's decision to search a home based solely on Riker's alert, suggesting she was too quick to trust the dog's instincts over human intelligence. The search had produced no results, a rare failure that still felt disappointing. "Sometimes I wonder if we place too much faith in these animals," Garcia had commented afterward. "They're tools, Martinez, not fortune tellers." The recollection reinforced Becca's determination as she confronted the present circumstances. Riker wasn't merely an asset, he was her colleague, and his current demeanor indicated a serious problem with Ms. Winter's bag. The recent increase in prescription drug abuse among teenagers heightened the worry. Several local high schools had documented occurrences within the past month, and stories were spreading regarding a structured distribution network. Was it possible this had extended to the elementary level? The thought caused her discomfort. Becca steadied herself, concentrating on the current situation, Riker's unwavering vigilance, and Ms. Winter's growing anxiety. Her years of training solidified into a firm conviction. This wasn't an error or chance occurrence. This was Riker acting precisely as he's been taught. "Ms. Winter," Becca stated, her voice calm but resolute, "I'm going to need to examine that bag." The teacher held her tote more tightly. "This is entirely unwarranted and humiliating. I have personal items inside." "Medication, personal items." Principal Harrison cleared his throat. "Eleanor, please, let's resolve this so we can proceed with the program." The tension in the gymnasium was noticeable, thick like the air before a storm. Riker stayed focused, his training preventing him from approaching without instruction. However, his posture conveyed unwavering confidence. "If your concern involves prescription medication," Becca suggested, "I understand. You may present those details to Principal Harrison directly." Ms. Winters looked towards the exit doors. "I would prefer that my private health details are not discussed within the school. This feels like a breach of privacy." "Eleanor," Principal Harrison stated, lowering his voice to a worried tone, "you have previously been willing to provide your migraine medication to the nurse. What has changed?" She lowered her shoulders a little. "All right. However, I prefer this handled in private, without a police dog creating a spectacle." Becca agreed. "We can utilize your office, Principal Harrison. Riker will need to be there." His response initiated this. "But we can be discreet." The journey to the administrative offices was quiet and strained. Riker kept his heel position perfectly beside Becca, but his focus stayed on the tote bag held tightly against Ms. Winter's side. Numerous teachers looked from their classrooms as they walked past. Upon entering the principal's office, Harrison closed the blinds and indicated the visitor chairs. "Let's resolve this swiftly and professionally," he stated. "Principal Harrison, please examine the bag," Becca requested, adhering to procedure by having the school administrator perform the search while she attended to Riker. Ms. Winter's hand trembled as she placed her tote on the desk, her face now pale. This was absurd, she whispered. But the protest seemed uninspired. Principal Harrison paused, then cautiously opened the bag. His expression changed from skeptical to confused to shocked as he removed items and placed them on his desk. A small plastic container that seemed to hold prescription pills, but without any pharmacy labels, 3 flash drives, a stack of papers resembling test papers marked with confidential state assessment stamps across the top, and lastly, a notebook filled with student names and what appeared to be payment amounts. Eleanor, Harrison's voice was barely audible. What is this? Ms. Winters slumped into a chair, her face hidden in her hands. It's not what it looks like, she mumbled. Harrison, his usual calm facade faltering, pointed to what appeared to be test materials that had left the secure testing room. Becca identified medication Adderall, recognizing the pills from previous cases, a prescription stimulant often abused to enhance studying and test performance. Ms. Winters looked up, tears tracing a path down her face. You don't understand the pressure, the persistent demands for higher test scores, the funding connected to performance metrics, she said. Riker, remaining alert, moved closer to the desk drawer, his attention moving away from the bag. There's more, Becca stated softly, gesturing toward the drawer, and adding, may I? Principal Harrison nodded silently, and Becca opened the drawer. Within it was another container of pills, distinct from the first. The medications were clearly labeled as prescriptions, issued to different people, none of whom were Eleanor Winters. I was simply attempting to assist them, Ms. Winters cried, referring to the struggling students, those experiencing anxiety, and those whose parents lacked the financial means. Were you distributing illegally obtained prescription medication to elementary school students? Harrison inquired, his voice devoid of emotion. It's important, just a few 8th graders, and then their older siblings at the high school requested it. Her voice faded as the full impact of her actions seemed to register. Oh, God, what have I done? Becca entered the hallway to call for assistance via radio, leaving Principal Harrison to observe Ms. Winters. The usual, somewhat disorderly atmosphere of the school day persisted around them, students and teachers oblivious to the events unfolding in the principal's office. Upon her return, Ms. Winters appeared calmer, although her hands still shook as she held a tissue. Lieutenant Wilson and other officers were en route, Becca stated. Ms. Winters, I'd like to examine your classroom, Harrison said, his expression still showing the impact of a trusted colleague's actions. According to our findings, Becca responded, observing Ms. Winters visibly withdrawing into her seat. Riker is still suggesting the possibility of more. 20 minutes elapsed before Lieutenant Wilson arrived, accompanied by 2 other officers. The school's hallways were swiftly evacuated, and a focus team proceeded to Ms. Winters' 4th grade classroom. The vibrant reading nook and inspirational posters created a striking contrast to the seriousness of the circumstances. Riker proceeded deliberately, moving around the room with a familiar expertise. Upon reaching the teacher's desk, he alerted once more, nudging at a lower drawer resembling a typical file cabinet. There is nothing further, Ms. Winters stated softly from the doorway, accompanied by an officer. Everything was contained within my bag. Becca inspected the drawer, observing an unusual characteristic regarding its size. This drawer is less deep than expected, she remarked. Her fingers discovered a concealed catch, which, when released, exposed a hidden compartment. The interior revealed further test materials, a small digital scale, multiple notebooks containing ledger entries, and a stack of cash carefully banded. Lieutenant Wilson softly whistled. This is a rather complex operation for a 4th grade teacher. Becca understood, leafing through one of the notebooks. The entries spanned 3 years and included various handwritings. There were also coded references to other schools in the district. The available information revealed a troubling scenario. A group involving educators and potentially administrators appeared to be altering test results throughout the district. At the same time, they were running a prescription drug operation. Medications were being given to students with assurances of improved focus and exam results, fostering a pattern of reliance and academic misconduct. Faced with further proof, Ms. Winters became overwhelmed. It began modestly. She wept, initially assisting a small number of students with early versions of study resources. Subsequently, Peterson at Northwood High suggested the use of Adderall, claiming his students showed a 40% improvement with pharmaceutical aid. The school district continually increased the performance benchmarks, warning that schools failing to meet the standards would be closed. "Where are you obtaining the prescription medications?" Lieutenant Wilson inquired. "Crowley and the science department have access to the medical supply room," she replied. Andrews, working within the administration, made changes to the inventory records, she confided. "Please recognize we were in a dire situation. The system requires unrealistic outcomes. And when schools underperform, teachers face job losses. Communities are negatively impacted. So you resorted to supplying drugs to children?" Becca questioned, disbelief evident in her voice. Ms. Winters remained silent, her response only tears. As officers continued to document the evidence, Becca watched Ms. Winters through the conference room window. The teacher, formerly held in high regard, now sat slumped at the table, responding to Lieutenant Wilson's questions amidst tears. The woman's decline was remarkable in its speed, shifting from a valued educator to someone accused of a crime within a few hours. Becca's thoughts turned to Ms. Winters' personnel file, which Principal Harrison had provided while they waited for the search warrant. Eleanor Winters, 43, had grown up in Oakland's struggling East Side. Despite significant challenges, she obtained a teaching degree and returned to serve her community. Her initial performance reviews were filled with commendations for her commitment to students facing adversity. What became of the hopeful young teacher? The narrative unfolded gradually through Ms. Winters' confession. 5 years ago, the school district introduced new standardized testing requirements directly linked to school funding. Lincoln Elementary, serving a predominantly working-class neighborhood, had faced challenges in meeting increasingly demanding metrics. "You can't fully grasp what it's like," Ms. Winters had explained, her voice filled with a sense of exhaustion. "We are evaluated solely on test scores, without consideration for whether children are genuinely learning or developing." Last year, the school received notification that if scores didn't improve by 15%, the school would be closed and students would be reassigned to Central Heights. Central Heights Elementary, situated across the highway in a more affluent area, required an hour-long bus ride for many Lincoln students. The closure would have been devastating for working parents who depended on after-school programs and local support networks. "Initially, we implemented after-school sessions," she explained, supplemented with extra worksheets and practice tests. However, our students were already facing significant challenges, many coming from homes where parents held multiple jobs, where English wasn't the primary language, and where basic needs weren't consistently met. The situation intensified as initial scores indicated only slight progress. It was then that Alan Peterson, a high school teacher encountering comparable difficulties, contacted her with a proposition: advance copies of test materials in exchange for guaranteed results. The scheme had developed over time. What started as sharing test preparation materials progressed to providing actual test questions. When that approach wasn't enough, Peterson proposed using pharmaceutical aids, such as Adderall and similar stimulants, to assist students in concentrating during exams. Initially, scores increased by 22%, Ms. Winters had confessed. The district lauded us as an example of educational reform. Parents felt reassured that their children would not be transported across town. Teachers retained their positions. What Ms. Winters had not foreseen was the rapid escalation of the program beyond her ability to manage. Several other schools experiencing difficulties sought similar assistance. Students started asking for medication to be used outside of testing situations. This created a complex underground market disguised as a commitment to high academic standards. "I simply wanted to aid my students," she murmured. "I didn't intend for this to happen." Becca reflected, observing the distressed teacher. The road to misfortune is often paved with good intentions. By evening, Lincoln Elementary was engulfed in intense media coverage. News vans filled the street as reporters shared rapid updates concerning the teacher who had become a drug dealer. Parents assembled outside Northwood High School in worried groups, looking at their phones and quietly discussing the situation. The emergency school board meeting, quickly arranged in the district auditorium, was full of worried families. Superintendent Wallace stood at the podium, his usual confident appearance replaced by a serious expression. "We understand your concerns and share your shock," he began, addressing the restless crowd. "The actions of Ms. Winters and potentially others represent a profound betrayal of trust, but I want to assure you that we are cooperating fully with law enforcement and taking immediate steps to address the situation." These steps had already begun. Peterson from the high school and 3 other educators implicated in Ms. Winters' confession have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. A comprehensive review of the district's standardized testing protocols was in progress. Grief counselors would be accessible to students at all impacted schools beginning tomorrow. The recent disclosures were particularly distressing for the families of Lincoln Elementary. Many had placed considerable faith in Ms. Winters over the years, recognizing her as a committed educator advocating for a school facing challenges. "My daughter adored Ms. Winters," Maria Gonzalez shared with a local reporter, her voice filled with emotion. "She received additional assistance after school 3 days a week. I now question the nature of those sessions." The school nurse had started collaborating with medical professionals to detect students potentially receiving unauthorized medication, although the complete scope was not yet known. Early information indicated that Ms. Winters had mainly focused on older students in the middle and high school levels, but several 5th graders were also involved in the situation as preliminary cases. Community leaders reacted swiftly. Councilmember Jenkins declared an emergency review of the district's performance metrics and funding formulas, and a local pharmaceutical company volunteered to sponsor drug awareness programs. Parent-teacher groups established support sessions to assist families in dealing with the disappointment. For Becca, observing the community's response evoked a range of feelings. The system that had placed pressure on Ms. Winters, despite the lack of justification for her reaction, largely remained unchanged. The same metrics, the same funding challenges, the same inequities would persist in schools such as Lincoln Elementary even after the scandal receded from public attention. "How many more are there?" Lieutenant Wilson mused, observing parents entering the auditorium. Educators who began with positive intentions but then violated boundaries they hadn't anticipated. The question remained unanswered, yet deeply troubling. The parking lot was dark and empty, the school long deserted, when Becca remained in her patrol car. Riker slept beside her, his duties for the day finished. His keen observation had uncovered a case that would probably extend far past Lincoln Elementary. She reached out to pet his fur, sensing his even breathing. "You did well today, partner," she whispered. "Really well." Riker opened one eye, responding to her praise with a quiet thump of his tail against the seat before returning to his rest. His absolute confidence in his abilities, his consistent focus on the job, were lessons Becca often thought about during her career. The radio was silent, the paperwork finished for now. During these calm moments between cases, doubt sometimes appeared. This isn't about Riker's capabilities, but rather about the systems they operated within, the complexities of human motivations, and the ambiguous situations their work often exposed. Ms. Winters wasn't a hardened criminal, at least not in the typical understanding of the term. She was an educator who had lost direction, who had eroded her ethical principles one incremental step at a time until she discovered herself on the opposite side of a boundary she'd previously considered inviolable. How many others existed, making comparable decisions, facing comparable pressures? Becca recalled her own difficulties as a new officer. The incentives to take shortcuts, to disregard issues for the perceived greater benefit. The pledge she'd made had steered her through those moments of uncertainty, just as Riker's training guided him through distractions and false trails. The contrast wasn't lost on her. An animal had demonstrated more defined ethical limits than a highly educated professional. Riker showed no interest in school budgets, performance metrics, or career advancement. His focus was on fulfilling the duties he's been trained for, cherishing the partnership they've cultivated, and upholding the straightforward distinction between right and wrong, a clarity humans frequently obscured with justifications. "Must be nice," Becca murmured, gently scratching behind his ears, observing his simplified view of the world. Their partnership had been established upon a foundation of trust, her faith in his instincts, his reliance on her guidance. Whenever confidence diminished, When personal reservations or political considerations or expediency became factors, the mission was compromised. The current day had emphatically underscored that understanding. Her phone vibrated with a message from Captain Reynolds. Excellent work today. 5 additional arrests resulted from Winter's intelligence. This case will continue to broaden. Becca started the engine, glancing in her rearview mirror as Riker sat up, immediately vigilant. Despite the intricate challenges present in the continuing investigation, and regardless of the systemic shortcomings that had led to this circumstance, their course of action remained straightforward. Adhere to the evidence, rely on the training, safeguard those in need. Certain days, that straightforwardness proved sufficient. The morning sun reflected off the recently installed sign at Lincoln Elementary, proclaiming education through integrity. Principal Harrison stood beneath it, welcoming students with refreshed vigor as they entered the building for the spring semester. From their patrol car, Becca and Riker observed, having just finished their monthly visit, a new tradition that started unexpectedly. What had initially been a standard demonstration transformed into a recurring community engagement program, with Riker now quite well known among the students. A young girl with bright beads in her braids, Officer Becca, stepped away from the group, hurrying to meet them. "Is Riker coming to our class today?" Ms. Jimenez, the newly hired 4th-grade teacher, smiled apologetically regarding her energetic student. "He certainly is," Becca confirmed, observing Riker's tail wagging a little at the acknowledgement. "However, recall our discussion. He's working, not playing," Zoe stated earnestly. "We are only allowed to pet him when you give permission." The investigation that commenced with Riker's alert had extended considerably beyond Lincoln Elementary. 17 educators throughout the district were ultimately involved in what the media called the achievement ring. This scandal resulted in the superintendent's resignation and a full revision of the district's performance evaluation metrics. Most significantly, it initiated a national discussion concerning the challenges confronting schools in underserved communities and the potentially harmful effects of funding exclusively based on standardized test scores. Ms. Winters had entered a guilty plea to several charges, including the distribution of controlled substances to minors, theft of test materials, and academic fraud. Her assistance resulted in a lessened sentence of 7 years, with a potential parole opportunity after 4, although her teaching career had concluded. Within the school, signs of transformation were apparent. The Testing Achievement Center had been renamed the Student Support Hub, now focusing on individualized learning assistance instead of test preparation. Parent volunteers managed a new after-school program. Funding from a grant provided by a local tech company supported comprehensive mental health services. "We're prioritizing genuine learning again," Principal Harrison said to Becca as they walked toward the assembly hall. "Test scores are important, but they don't represent the sole definition of success." The quarterly awards ceremony acknowledged progress in areas including academic growth, community service, and perseverance through challenges. The applause was thunderous as Becca and Riker were called to the stage. Officer Martinez and Riker conveyed an important lesson to the assembled students, Harrison stated. "Integrity isn't simply about adhering to rules, it's about acting ethically, even when facing challenges." While Riker performed a brief demonstration of his search skills, locating hidden training aids throughout the auditorium to the children's delight, Becca considered the changes initiated by one alert dog. Changes were underway, with priorities being reassessed and vulnerabilities being handled. Subsequently, as they got ready to depart, Lieutenant Wilson found them in the parking lot. "That press conference you gave last month gained national attention," he told her. "3 other districts have asked for our K-9 units to assess their testing facilities. They are referring to this as preventative measures." Becca acknowledged, observing Riker already concentrating on their next location. Prevention is always preferable to prosecution. As they drove away from Lincoln Elementary, Riker's head was held high in the passenger compartment. Becca felt a sense of completion. They hadn't just solved a crime, they'd helped set a community on a better path. Ultimately, that was what their partnership was truly about. Have you ever witnessed a working dog make an unexpected discovery, like Riker did? Their instincts often surpass our own understanding. Do you believe our education system places too much stress on teachers and students through standardized testing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed Riker and Officer Martinez's story, please subscribe and enable notifications by clicking the bell icon to stay updated on our daily K9 tales. Share this video with anyone who appreciates these incredible working dogs. Don't miss our previous stories, currently displayed on your screen. Until our next episode, see you tomorrow, same time, with another extraordinary K9 hero story.